far, across Europe, open source is becoming very, very quickly a first-class citizen in the discussion of digital sovereignty, public sector resilience, and digital public infrastructure. I think for Cyprus, the important question is not so much in terms of whether open source matters, we know that it does, but to see what it means in practice for our country, and this panel will be focusing a bit more on that. So, as we saw already, we have the technical experts, we have the civil communities, we have universities, research organizations, all active in the open ecosystem here in Cyprus. I think our challenge here is that we are a bit scattered, so we need to bring those people together and start doing things together. So today we'll try to surface, let's say, the Cyprus reality, the Cypriot context, connecting to the lessons learned from the European ecosystems, and hopefully come up with some suggestions on what the realistic next step could be for us, and what it would look like. So we're very fortunate to have a panel with us that brings together different parts of these conversations, both from Cyprus and abroad. So to kick us off, let me invite our panelists actually to introduce themselves and share their first thoughts on this topic, and we'll pick it up from there. Theodoros, do you want to go first?
Yeah. I've been
Thank you. I think it's open.
So I've been working with free and open source software for quite a long time, and I'm an enthusiast of that. And we realize that it's a real advantage using this software and these applications. And we started creating communities in order to promote this in our country and try to make things a little bit better. Out of this effort, we created the LAC, which is the organization now that is inside the Cyprus LAC, because we stole this word from our friends in Greece. In order to promote this idea of free and open source software. We have a lot of failures, some successes, and here we are now trying to see how to promote this idea.
Okay, good.
Okay, I will use it just for the introduction. So my name is Pavel Smarš. I'm from Brno University of Technology in the Czech Republic, and we are part of the NGI Zero community, let's say. Specifically, we are a partner in the projects or series of projects that is responsible for outreach activities. So we, in addition to our local guys, we run the group of regional representatives in several widening countries, including Cyprus and Greece, and we try to organize it across Europe or across these widening countries. Now we include Tunisia, and trying to promote the opportunities and also recently the open source software and hardware in Europe.
Pavel, for people that don't know, can you expand a bit on what NGI is?
The NGI stands for New Generation Internet. It's kind of, European Commission is, they have experts in coming with new names, so it's the program that ended, but the support for open source remains in the current program, and hopefully will appear there in the new framework program 10, so from 2028. And it's the program which supported the calls every, let's say, 2 months. Up to now, there was a call for open source solutions, let's say software plus hardware plus maybe open standards and other stuff. And you could get as an individual developer or let's say small group of developers up to 50,000 euros for your projects. So
Funding open source projects.
yes.
Okay. Let's move on to Sylvia.
Thank you. So my name is Silvia Koumonido. I am coming from the University of Cyprus Library. I have been working as a university officer since 2004, and since 2009 I have been actively involved in the topic of open science, which is an umbrella term, including a lot of aspects, including open access to publications, to data, and open application of resources, etc. So since then, as a library, we are working as a national open access desk, providing support to all relevant stakeholders. And through this role, we have been also involved in the creation of the national policy of open access in Cyprus. This was in 2016. After an event like this, we had a meeting with all the stakeholders, including policymakers and institutions, universities, and other interested parties. So the result of this was the first national policy, which was finally revised in 2022, again through a procedure of negotiating between different stakeholders, interested stakeholders, under the auspices of the Deputy Ministry of Research, Innovation and Digital Policy. And with this comes all the relevant topics and aspects related to openness and
Yeah, can we go a bit more into what actually you achieved through this open access policy? What are like 2 or 3 key milestones?
Well, what is expected is that all research outputs produced by publicly funded projects are expected to be in open access.
And that's currently happening?
This is currently happening when we are talking about public money.
Publicly funded?
Publicly funded
Research
projects.
Yes,
yes. So yeah, that's it. I will stop here and we will talk
Okay,
more
let's
later.
move on to Andrea. Also.
Hello, I'm Andreas Cassis. I'm a research faculty at KIOS Research and Innovation Center of Excellence, which is under the University of Cyprus. I've been involved with open science since 6 years ago. So at KIOS we have an open science committee which aims to create the policies related to open science. So first I was a member 6 years ago. For the last almost 3 years I'm the chair of that committee. We took a large number of initiatives. So we built an open science policy through this time. So we aim to make our center align with European priorities. We took a lot of actions to raise awareness in our researchers. So we did a lot of trainings. We took many initiatives. One of which is to have an open science, a KIOS Open Science Award, which we give annually since 3 years ago. So we do try to bring forward a culture of openness in the center. And we also created a strategy for the next 10 years on how the center should follow this culture, these ideas. So we created specific practices and processes such that open science should be followed in the next years. Our initiatives are well recognized along the EU. So our center has received a series of awards for our initiatives. So we received, the last 3 years, we received an award from Gerum, from UFED, and also I think it's Open Forum that has named KIOS the strategic player in Cyprus for open source. So they published this fact sheet and they reached us. So this is. So we do try to bring initiatives and we try to do our best to bring this culture in Cyprus, but not just in our center, but all over.
Andreas, what was the main drive for you to chase this path? I understand you did it within, let's say. So what were you trying to, what were your expectations, let's say? What were you trying to achieve?
So it's the understanding of the increasing impact. So I'm a researcher. So for me, it was first open science was meaning open access to publications. First, it was the understanding that this led to higher visibility. So having understanding that this helps promote these ideas. But then I started seeing how people started using open data. One of the members of the committee actually created a code which has, I think, more than 1 million downloads now. And this actually is from our repositories that's downloaded. So we've seen actually impact from our initiatives, and I think this was like a positive feedback. Like we've done things, we've seen them working, and then we try to
reinforce the effort.
Yes.
Good. Shall we move on to Vasilis?
Thank you. I am Vasilis Tsakalos. I'm the Director of Research and Technological Support at the Cyprus Institute. So I have my responsibilities are the administrative and financial management of our external funding, which is half the budget of the Cyprus Institute. Also the coordination and the supervision of the central research infrastructures, and the research infrastructures in the sense of facilities, capabilities, know-how that can be used by researchers to do scientific research, produce knowledge and innovation. So my approach in this discussion from the point of view of the research center and also the research infrastructure. And for us, our primary interest is open science. Okay, but open science, the broader sense, that covers also reproducibility, equitable opportunities for researchers, for companies, and so this brings also open access to our research infrastructures, especially the HPC and AI facility that we have in the Cyprus Institute provides equitable access to academic users and to SMEs for research and innovation.
Can you explain the acronyms, just for people? HPC?
High performance computing. It's our supercomputer that until recently it was mainly for traditional HPC use. Recently we upgraded it with AI optimized GPUs, and so we will serve the academic and business community of Cyprus for AI applications. So we have a framework that is in effect since many years, and will continue to be in effect, to provide equitable access to all. So whether someone works for the Cyprus Institute or for the University of Cyprus or from an SME can have access to these compute resources. So, of course, we prioritize open source code. We have standard frameworks and execution environments so that whatever is run in our facility can then be reproduced elsewhere in other facilities. We also are very active in projects that support the digital transformation of SMEs and public organizations, and these services are also provided for free. And so this is another aspect, another, let's say, way of approaching open access. And regarding the main question in this panel, in this event, research infrastructures or research facilities in general can support open source through technical capabilities, through open access, and also through engagement with the stakeholders from SMEs, academy, research centers, because this is also another important component of this discussion, how to promote this bridge, this interaction this engagement with everyone.
Thank you very much. Emil.
Yes, hello everyone, my name is Emil Brock. I am Global Sovereignty Ambassador at SUSE, which means I travel around and I talk about digital sovereignty and open source. And besides that, and that might be interesting for this panel, I'm also co-founder of the DOSBA, that's the Dutch Open Source Business Alliance. So in other words, a cooperation of all companies in the Netherlands that make money with open source software.
You would like to elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Give us the industry approach, let's say.
Yeah, the industry approach. It was, we noticed that there were different definitions of digital sovereignty floating around, and even different definitions of open source. And we wanted to make it very clear what open source is, what digital sovereignty is, and therefore we embraced the definition of the EU in the EU Cloud Sovereignty Framework. They made a clear definition of that. And we want to lobby within the Dutch government, and through Appel, we will lobby, and that's what we do now, lobby in European institutions to make sure that if public money is spent, that it's going to public code, and if commercial organizations choose to spend money, that it's a very wise decision to spend it in open source.
How's it going to?
Well, we have 42 companies attached to DOSBA. And you understand, being a nerd, 42, I really love that number. So yeah, we have to stop now, or we have to go to only 42 times 2 or so. But yeah, I think we have a fair representation of the open source companies in the Netherlands. And I can also say that if you see the companies that now gather in Appel, the European overarching organization, that's really a staggering number of companies, and you really have a strong representation there.
Yeah, it's important to note, to emphasize that, because for many years open source and making money was always like, let's say, this gray area. So it's very important to have like companies that can actually make money out of this and commercialize them. Good.
Yeah, well, making money with open source, it's something in some environments that's almost seen as cursing. And we want to make clear that if you really are looking for the most secure, most trustworthy open source software, that as a enterprise organization, it's a very wise decision to look if there is an organization, a company that can deliver the appropriate support.
Okay, good, thank you. So we already had the round of, let's say, of statements. Is there anything, something that you'd like to comment upon, pick up on, something someone else said, before we move to the next round? No? Yeah, right.
Well, it's not very often we have events like this in Cyprus, so I would like to thank the people behind this, the Capital Series and Open Forum Europe, and our esteemed guests, and everybody that worked behind the shadows to make this happen.
Let's move on then. Those, since you are holding the mic, maybe we can start for you in the next round. From your community perspective, you know, from the grassroots approach, let's say, if we come to apply the principles that the community stands for, like transparency and openness, to what we're trying to achieve here on public infrastructure, digital infrastructure and all that, what would need to change on how we evaluate technology, how we evaluate proposals, how we choose in the end, and how we use this kind of technologies in the open technologies mindset?
So basically you want to know how to make this, how to push this to...
Yeah, which is the topic of this.
To the... Actually...
To the government, to the public infrastructure.
To the public, yeah. We tried, as I said, we tried a lot of, many times in the past, but there were, maybe our approach was wrong, I don't know, maybe they couldn't understand it, but maybe, I'm not really sure what is the correct answer in this case, but I would say we could start by trying to approach some key persons, like, for example, the Deputy Minister for Technology and Innovation, if you can reach out to these people and explain them the benefits, what this thing provides, the openness, the collaboration needed, the autonomy that it gives you. I think we could persuade them to start adopting these technologies. And one good step would be, I've seen they are becoming a trend, these open source policy offices. So maybe it's a good idea if we will have one here and try to promote and push these ideas into the public sector here.
Hopefully next time we'll have representatives from government, politics.
That's always have been a problem with our events. That's at some time we said, okay, this doesn't work, the top bottom approach doesn't work, so maybe we should try the bottom up, and we started, let's teach the kids, and we have some kids here, Marius is one of them, not kid anymore, of course. But
apparently there's top to bottom of momentum building up now. Right? So hopefully we can bring those two together. Good. Let's move on to Sylvia, maybe. Sylvia, like from your perspective, you mentioned about already doing a lot from the open science and digitalization perspective. So you mentioned best practices during our break. We touched upon it a bit. So in terms of like the things you learned from all these years, like in terms of practices of infrastructures that we have in place, how could Cyprus move on with more confidence? What are like some examples we can take toward public code, public infrastructure, digital sovereignty in terms of infrastructure? So we don't have to start from scratch, let's say, based on what we learned already.
Actually, we are not starting from scratch. We have examples. We have, even the government has data of CY that it is based on an open source software. So there are examples that we can use. There are best practices. For example, we at the library, I can only talk from my perspective, we are using open source softwares for our cultural heritage. The digital items. So we have practices there that we can showcase, that we can also provide to show the impact, as Andreas already mentioned. So we're not starting from scratch. We just have to make a bit more advocacy, maybe some more contacts to the right people, to the key persons in Cyprus, but not only. I think Cyprus is not the only one facing these kind of problems, but as already mentioned in the panels before, it's about a culture. It's about shifting a decades culture. So we just have to show the impact, make the correct connections, and I think we can move forward.
Okay, good. Andreas, would you like to talk again? Earlier we discussed a bit about the challenges, let's say, coming from your. Hey, you want to say something in advance?
No.
Okay, so we discussed about the challenges coming from academia, like in terms of getting like on the commercialization side of things, and how I think it was mentioned earlier in the keynote how like what the challenge is when you're coming from an open source and open background, let's say, to raise money and commercialize your IP. So maybe you can share a bit more on that, like, between the open approach, let's say, around knowledge, data, and software, and then on the other side, the intellectual property and the commercialization challenges from your perspective.
Thank you. So at our center at KIOS, so we try to promote this culture of openness, of reproducibility, reusability, and so on. So this is not just an open publication, which is, at least in academia, this is what first comes to mind, but also on open data, on care data, on open source, on how to make our code open. In this, there's a lot of inhibitors on how people perceive openness. When it comes to data, this is mostly about things like privacy and safety of data, we are partners. With open source, an important inhibitor is the perception that openness contradicts intellectual property. So many people have this perception that if we give things open, then these things lose their value. And what we try to make is to create a culture that brings forward that openness and intellectual property can go together. So we're currently in the process of creating a policy at the center which combines openness, open science, and intellectual. So we aim to do this in order to push forward the culture of people adopting this openness. Now, how it can be achieved, it's another thing. So awareness is one thing. So we do try to educate people. So we do have policies in order to help. IP culture is still, at least in the research environment, is still not that strong, at least compared to other countries. So I think educating people also in IP will help resolving this, because it will help understand that these things can coexist. And having this information easily accessible to people, or making people go forward in this direction, I think it can help jointly this. The other thing I think could help is government policy. So, at least in our research center, there's a very strong culture in doing publication. But this came not just from awareness or from our policy, but because Horizon Europe requires open publications. Right? While in other research outputs, let's say, encourage. I'm not saying that funding bodies should, require strictly that all open source, like all software should be open source. But if these elements are instilled towards the grant, if it's required to check for commercialization, understand IP, and then when there is no restriction, make your code open source, or move forward towards IP protection and open source. I think this will help drive the culture. So I would say that how we envision things going forward is to have mutually openness, impact, let's say, in commercialization from these two, and as a reinforcing element, not as a hindering element between.
Perfect, thank you. Let's move on to Vasilis before we go back to our European friends. Vasilis, you described like existing capacity through research infrastructures and how important it is for open and equitable access to research and innovation. What role could these institutions play, the research institutions that have a strong presence in Cyprus, play at the national level in this change in terms of building bridges, let's say, between the public sector needs on one side and real implementation in the end of this digital infrastructure?
Yes. First, as their role is primarily to be a hub for experimentation, for using advanced resources, advanced technology. So if this bridging character is combined with some kind of support, is it an office, as you said earlier? So it's a kind of research support, research technical support that can support users to both use open source and also to produce open source code that can be used afterwards. So this is, let's say, one kind of, one possible service that can be provided together with, for example, the compute resources. Also, research facilities and infrastructures can play the role of project factories, okay, where companies, academic users can build new projects, can bring new funding, can engage with other stakeholders abroad, etc., etc. So yes, they can build ecosystems, in fact. Okay, but these ecosystems need a little more pieces of this puzzle so that they produce concrete results. So this idea of the open software program office can be a solution towards this direction.
Good. Emil, what does it take in the end for open source to become not something that organizations, corporations, government consume, but also something they support, they contribute to, they collaborate with all the stakeholders and build businesses, as you said earlier, around it?
Yeah, I think what's important is that you organize. So OSPO is a really good initiative for sure, set up an OSPO for Cyprus. There are experiences in other countries now how to do that, where to start. There is, for example, something I can recommend to anyone. There is the OSPO Alliance. They have a handbook for basically how you manage a IT environment in a nice way, in a public-friendly way. So that's something I can recommend to do. And another thing is what we did in the Netherlands and what other countries did, 14 at this moment, are organized in the appel. So make also sure that you have a representation of your open source companies. And it doesn't matter how big or how small they are, as long as you make money with open source software. So it can be a self-employed person until the largest company that you have here. As long as the core business is open source, then make sure that you find, let's see, we started with 15, 20 companies, and yeah, sometimes we're competitors, but step over that and see that if we are able to use the momentum right now with, as was said earlier in the keynotes, with the chief marketing officer and the other side of the pond, make sure that we take that momentum, and then the pie will grow in so much way that you don't have to fight over each other's piece, but everyone will be able to make a good profit and a good revenue out of open source business.
Thank you, thank you. I mean, let's come back to Pavel. Pavel, can you share a bit from your experience, from your perspective, on like what can make this kind of coordination between stakeholders like work in real practice? Let's say how, like rather than remaining, let's say, a loose network of good intentions. Let's say, how can we make this ecosystem come together and produce change?
I will try to answer it. I can. Like from my, let's say, perspective in the Czech Republic, I can also refer to what does not work, which is sometimes you should not repeat the errors we made. And but what I can say that we are trying. There is a group of open source enthusiasts that organize every year national or semi-national conference called Open Alternative in November. It's open to general public and speaks English, so you can contribute and participate in the event. And so at least some of the let's say government officials were present. But also it's linked to the there were some presentations that were against the current policy situation and political parties. So there were very strong position of the presenters. So that's something that probably does not directly help in this sense, but at least it brings some visibility, and there are other activities that can link at least the public infrastructure and the open source community in general, and in our case, the academic background, so research at the university. So, for example, we have one of the open source projects not paid partially by municipalities, but opening the data that are also very important for doing the decisions on on every level, so municipality level, and then some districts and other stuff. So that's the opportunities to try to put together the public sector, of course, the research and to, let's say, enthusiasts that are involved.
What should we not do?
Well, yeah, there are many many things that like these hot debates on the politics. It's problematic to have at the conference level, and there are many things like we had the presentation from the EC. What I don't understand, I also reviewed the projects. Europe gives billions of euro every year for research, and there is still the dissemination communication, right? I don't understand why we, like the Commission, the payers don't insist on running on the, let's say, social media, right? Everybody now is moved from Twitter or X to other networks, but there are open source alternatives. Nobody uses Mastodon network, but they could ask easily, to publish everything there. So yeah, there are simple ways to do it, and I don't understand why it's not going.
Thank you. So I think we have 3 more minutes. Maybe we can, is there someone that would like some final comment, or maybe we can, just any question from the audience? Anyone that would like to ask something? No? Any final statements from our side? Yeah.
So there was a very recent nightmarish proposed legislation from the European Union. We nicknamed it chat control, and we kill it, but it's coming back. Anyway, one of the early drafts of this proposal was that basically they wanted to monitor every and each one of us except themselves, which is exactly the opposite of what we would like to see here. We would like to see technology that promotes transparency for public matters, promotes transparency for public officials, and promote privacy for the individuals.
Thank you. I think that's it. Good. So I think through our discussion it became evident that Cyprus does not lack the ingredients to get this forward. There's civic capacity, there's research infrastructure, there's knowledge, there's open science experience, technical expertise, and of course European knowledge to draw upon. So I think the challenge here is coordination. Sylvia, I think you mentioned from a previous kind of meeting. Yeah. Last time you had another meeting and this things started happening. So hopefully, I think that's my action. Let's go and do this next meeting so we can get things happening between all of us here. So try to combine all these efforts into, let's say, shared public capability. So yeah, hopefully today's discussion has given us some direction or planted the seeds, let's say, from some next steps of what could come. So yeah, thank you to all our panelists and everyone here for joining us.